Why do we need to hire a mortgage broker when I can go directly to a Spanish bank? What happens if you can get the money in the moment when the construction is finished? Hello everyone, greeting from the Costa del Sol. This is Santiago Realtor and I have a very special guest today, Isac Gustafsson.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Isac, for coming all the way from Seville. This is a very important topic for all of my subscribers, to be honest. How to get money from a Spanish bank, okay? This is important. Guys, stay until the end of the video because we have a special promo from Habeno. Thank you guys for that. And you have to wait until the end to hear it. First question, Isac, I really need to tell you this. I will be direct as usual. Why do we need to hire a mortgage broker when I can go directly to a Spanish bank?
That's a good question. It may seem like you're paying a lot upfront, but when it comes to a mortgage, the main cost that we're talking about is the interest rate. And we're talking a mortgage. So it's going to be a long period of time that you're going to be paying this interest rate. And what we do at Habeno is that we help you negotiate with the banks. And we do it for you. So that means that we can get you the best deal on the interest rate, and in the long term, you will end up saving money.
I see. Yeah, well, it happens sometimes to some of my clients that in order to save the 1% that's the commission fee that the mortgage broker takes is 1%. Trying to save this 1%, they ended up closing a mortgage for 4% of interest when maybe Habeno can get you 3.5, right? And this 0.5% of interest, that could be maybe 20 to 30,000 euros in a 20 years of mortgage. For saving 2,000, you ended up paying 20,000, right? I did my own mortgage with the mortgage broker, and I'm a local, so I can assume that someone from abroad would be a bit more complicated. But it has so many papers and documents and things. Is it really needed, all this nightmare of documents?
Well, honestly, it's not that much of a nightmare, the documents. It's just standard documents.
It's standard, right?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I hate all these documents and taxes stuff. I'm not really happy to do all these things, but well, for you maybe it's not that much.
Yeah, I mean, I hate documents too, just to be clear. Even though I work with this, I still get a headache.
All right.
But to be fair, it's just basic documentation. You have to think about when you arrive to Spain as a foreigner and you're buying a property, the banks here, they have no clue of who you are. So they have to make sure that they get a client that's good and that they can trust. So how do we build this trust with the banks? We have to present them with a good case, and this we base on the documentation. And it's just basic documentation that you have to present to anyone in any country, I think. It's tax declarations, credit report, account statement, pay slips. It's just to show how much you make, who you are.
I see. Good to hear. For me, your opinion is very interesting, Isac. As a professional of banking, do you think that in 2025, next year, coming soon, is the interest rate going to drop?
Estimating the interest rate is always a sensitive and difficult topic, right? It's hard to say, but we at Habeno, we always follow the market and we are constantly looking at how the world is developing. But if we keep seeing a continuous stabilization of the economy, we can see a modest decrease in the interest rate.
A modest decrease of the industry. How much was a modest? Is it a modest 0.5? A modest could be 1%?
It's hard to say. I can't really.
If I give you 100 euros to put it in a number, which number would you set to put this 100 euros?
Okay,
so
a little bit more.
I'm trying to get your personal opinion. It's all right. We don't have like a crystal balls to guess the interest rate, but I'm interested in your professional opinion. How much you think the interest rate would be if I give you 100 euros to bet on that?
That's still very hard. I think you have to put some more money down on the table.
Let's put less. So to bet with less money is easier. Let's put 50 euros.
50 euros. No, but yeah, we could probably expect something 0.5, but yeah.
0.5
hopefully. We don't know.
In 2025, well, that's a bit of a long term, because at the moment, what is the interest rate you're closing average for the non-resident client?
It depends a little bit on type of interest rate you're looking at. But if we're looking at the reference rate from the European Central Bank, the ECB, it's the Euribor. And at the moment, closing for November was at 2.4%. No, sorry, 2.5%. And at the moment in December, it's around 2.5%. But we'll see how much it closes at. So hopefully we'll see rates of 2%. But that's the Euribor. Yeah, and the way it works in Spain is that they will add a spread on top of this Euribor. So if, for example, you have an interest rate at the moment, the average looks like something like Euribor plus 1.4, Euribor plus 1.2, somewhere around there.
So if the Euribor is 2.4 and you have 1.4 on top of that, so you ended up with 3.8 interest rate? Is that what you're closing at the moment?
Yeah.
How can that go down to 0.5 in just a year of a time?
Oh no, it will go down 0.5%.
Plus,
exactly. So it will be Euribor, which is 2.5, so 1.9 then, plus 1.4%.
So you are talking about around 2% of interest rate if the Euribor goes down to 0.5 as expected. Understood. Another thing is also the amounts, right? A lot of my clients, especially one of my subscribers are from the US, they got such a good deals with the banks there. You can, with very little money, you can buy a property. Some properties you can buy only with 5% of down payment. But in Spain, it's a different story, right? The non-residents, they should have a minimum of a 30% of down payment, okay? Do you think that's gonna change next year?
It's also very difficult to say again, but since it's a policy from the Bank of Spain, they decide this. But of course, seeing how much the market has increased, the non-resident market has increased last year, perhaps they would be open to it. But for the time being, it's still going to be 70%, as I see it.
So you don't think that's going to change, right?
It could change. You never know.
The maximum the bank can give you is 70% of the value of the property in the check to get the keys. That's my favorite part, right? When someone else come out with a check, give it to the notary, and you get the keys of the property, right? That's absolutely fantastic. But that's maximum of 70%. The way I see it as well, what I'm seeing with my clients, right? They are more or less on the safe ground in the 50%. If you have 50% of the price in down payment, it's very interesting rates what you get if you have already the 50% in down payment. So when you start going up to 70%, when you only put down 30%, there are not that many banks who give you the 70%, and also the interest rates are a bit higher. It could be an option that you can get this 70% for a bit better money?
Actually, all of our banks that we collaborate with accept the 70% loan to value. And the interest rate, of course, if you put down more, the banks view it as a lesser risk. So in the end, when it comes to interest rate, what they look at is the risk. But if you have a great profile, you have a great income, salary, you have, let's say, one mortgage back home, and you're buying a second residence here, the banks don't really see it as that big of a risk. So you could still get a great interest rate, even though it's a 70% loan to value.
So there's not much different, or it
depends on.
But it could get a bit better next year.
Yeah, of course. They prefer, because it's a lower risk. If you come put down 50% tomorrow, that's less of a risk for the bank.
I see. Okay, so another thing is important for me as well, because we need to explain the non-residents how it works here in Spain, right? It's not the same going to your country and asking the bank, give me the check, or here in Spain, right? What would you say is the main difference between asking a mortgage in the US, for example, and asking it here in Spain?
Well, now I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, I think. I just said it was not that bad with the documentation, but to be honest, it's documentation. Since, like I said before, you're foreign here, you have to present everything yourself. So it's going to be a bit more of documents, and I think also it's a little bit more bureaucratic than it is in most countries. For example, I'm from Sweden, so personally I'm used to everything being super smooth. You just go with an app like this, you have everything done.
Right. You have a bit more bureaucracy in Spain.
Yeah, exactly. So be prepared for that, but that's also why we exist at Habeno. We help you to explain all of the process. We help you with the complicated closing part of the mortgage. So you don't have to think about all of this bureaucracy or keeping in contact with the banks or the real estate agent, the lawyer. So we kind of act as a stakeholder manager to make the operation as smooth as possible.
I understand. Thank you for answering that. Next question. What would you say is better for a bank to give you the check for a new development or to give you the check for a resale property?
Generally speaking, it's resale property, I would say, because the property is already known. And also you have the problem with the new development that you can only get the mortgage if it's already finished or about to be finished. But if we're talking about a property that has no problem with the papers, a new property that has no problem with the papers, registered correctly, it's almost finished or it is finished, you have all the licenses and everything, it's similar risk.
There's not much of a difference.
No,
right?
If it's finished.
Like I said, in my opinion, the bank don't want your property. They're not interested in the properties. What they're interested is in the good profile of a client.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have your documents and your papers very prepared.
Yeah.
And you build a good profile around yourself in order to get the better and the most interesting rate.
Yeah, actually this is one of the reasons the banks really like collaborating with us, because we do the same risk analysis as they do. So all of the cases that we present to the banks, they have been analyzed by our mortgage advisors or by me.
Yes.
And yeah, so we present all of it very neatly. We present a case that they know is already done. They can just accept it.
You do a lot of work for them.
Yeah.
Most of their work that you do it for them, and you have this banking background that you understand how banks work to make it easier. Understood. Big thing as well. In new developments, I have most of my clients buy new developments. At the moment, the problem is like the resale apartments and the resale properties are just too expensive, and they cost more or less the same like new developments, right? When you put it in something which is 30 years old, sometimes not very attractive, right? When it comes to something brand new for the same price. But something I'm seeing with new builds, for example, if my client reserve a property on pre-sale stage, right? You can get sometimes properties that cost 300,000, even 200 something. When the moment 2 years after that, when the moment comes to finish and do the certificate of construction finish, the official valuation of that property, it's sometimes much higher. Right? So my client who paid the 30% during construction, but the 30% of the price that he blocked is not that he's asking the 70% to the bank. He's actually asking now 200,000 for a property that costs 400,000. And the moment when the property is ready, you have an appreciation, always. And the official validation is higher. So you're actually asking for 200,000, it's 50%. You don't have that on the resale property. The value is the same a month after.
That's true.
Right? So you're actually asking less money. So my question is there an advantage in asking for 50% instead of 70% to a bank of the value of the property? Is there an advantage in the interest rate?
Yeah, there can be. Like I said earlier, it depends on how much of the risk there is to.
Depending on the profile, right?
Exactly, and this can be partly, of course, how much you're borrowing, the percentage, or your financial background.
Situation. I see. So at the end, the bank don't care about the property. What he cares about the person, but the person is asking 50%. That could be good.
That's a good sign, right?
That's a good sign.
It shows that you can pay more.
Exactly.
You have more trust from the bank then.
So this one is very important, Isaac. What happens if you can get the money in the moment when the construction is finished? The developer, you signed a PPC a year ago, the time comes, you did the courtesy visit, and you have the appointment at the notary, but during the mortgage process with Habeno, the bank say, no, sorry, we cannot give you the money.
That's why we always do the check before. We do the same risk analysis to make sure that the client knows before that they can get the mortgage, and then there will be no scary surprises in the end. But of course, if you're not doing this check, you're running a huge risk in losing your deposit. And
you are obligated to complete the purchase by contract with the developer when you put the down payment of the 30% during construction, right? But in these cases that you can get the mortgage, why you couldn't get the mortgage, right? What could be the reason? Let's say if you did the pre-approval and the client says, because I had a client, for example, this year that he couldn't get the mortgage. Good that we do. I do it with all my clients, with my own. I always recommend to do the pre-approval before paying any reservation, or even less obvious for sure, before moving to the PPC. But what happens if you really, let's say when you did the pre-approval, this person was fine, and then 2 years after he bought like, I don't know, 5 Lamborghinis and have crazy debts. He went gambling addiction, and then suddenly in the moment that comes of yes, true, to get the keys, the Spanish bank saying like, no, this guy, no.
Yeah. Of course, during this period, you have to be careful with what you're doing with your money. Still keep a job, or if you're changing jobs, make sure that you do it so that you're still not on probation period. Preferably stay with the same job. You also have to make sure that you don't go and get another mortgage in your own country, or you get a lot of debt, or start, I don't know, buying properties. Because even if you have rental income, when it comes to rental properties in Spain, it's a little bit tricky. Because if you have less than 4 properties in Spain, you're not considered a landlord.
Right.
So they will not count with all of the rental income. So maybe in your mind, it seems like a great investment. You're going to have more money. You're going to have better case for the bank, but it's not the case.
It's very frequent. My other clients were exactly that case, the ones that didn't pass by, because they have several properties in Vegas that they rented out, and it was very complicated for the Spanish bank, because for the Spanish banks, for you guys to understand, all these properties that you rented out to generate passive income is debt. Right? In some point, it's an income, but it's also a big debt. So if you put that on the balance, might not be that attractive for Spanish bank, right?
Yeah.
But answering to my own questions, like what happened if you can really get the money from the bank? This is for myself as well, right? I can help you with that, all right? That's when it comes, when you have like a good relationship or a good real estate agent with good networking. We need to negotiate with the developers. If you really, really can't complete the purchase, there are a lot of things we can do, right? Always, most of the times, the developers have some other developments that you can put in the future, or a bit smaller property, or something like, because at the end you did a down payment, right? And if you put it maybe in a property where it's a bit cheaper, and then you can go to the lenders with a bit higher interest rate. You also work with lenders, not only with the Spanish bank. That could solve the thing. And there are some other developers, depending on the case. AELCA, for example, they don't get into any problems. If you don't want to proceed with the purchase, they give you back the 75% of the money, or whatever money you paid, and they don't ask for questions. But it depends, and there are a lot of ways to solve this issue, just for you to know. Okay. The next thing is like, which requirements you need to do to get the money for the Spanish bank. Because we spoke a lot, but there are some people that never done this before, right? What do you need to give to the mortgage broker in order to get the check?
You mean documentation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the main thing that the Spanish banks will look at is your DTI, or your debt to income ratio. And to look at this, they will check the tax declarations, your pay slips, account statements, credit report, very important to see all of the debt that you have. And then also your bank statements to confirm that you don't have any hidden debt. Or you have, for example, maybe you have a private loan that doesn't show in your credit report, because also from each country, the credit report is different. So that's the main. But of course, if you're a business owner, the documentation will be a bit different. Or if you have, I don't know, crazy profile with holding companies, offshore companies, we deal with all of this too. So sometimes it's hard to say a specific case, but generally speaking, those are the main documents.
Yeah. That's not that complicated.
No.
They are easy to get documents.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for staying until the end of the video. Thank you, Isac, for answering all my questions. And because of the promo we did with Habeno, you can have under the description, there is a link to get the mortgage pre-approval for free. All right. And to get sometimes this property you want, with the views you want, that penthouse that you really dream about. Sometimes what my subscribers or my clients are doing lately is to get a bit of a mortgage, maybe it could be 20-30%, that makes the difference in the price, because at the moment the real estate is quite expensive in Spain, and to cover that mortgage with the rentals, maybe that give you the dream property that you really need. All right, feel free to contact me in the description if you would like to arrange an online meeting so I can answer all your questions and potentially also do the mortgage pre-approval. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you, Isac. See you in the next video. Bye then.